Hey guys, let's try out this little example here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to write an example of basically how I write a little program. And also I want to talk about user input and applying a function to it. So to that end, I looked up some rules for Pig Latin and they were a little bit complex. So I went with the simplest set of rules that I could find just so the program here would be a little easier. So I have rules for Pig Latin. I've kind of noted that the standard version's a little bit harder. Maybe I could have that as a reach goal for version, 1.1 of this program. Um, and then I also have this to-do item that I'm putting in right now that I know I need to maybe validate input, check for special characters. Multiple words would be a problem. But the goal of this program, which I probably should have started with, is I'm going to get user input. I'm going to ask the user for a word, and then I'm going to translate that word to Pig Latin, and then I'm going to output that word to the user. So I've kind of written a little bit of outline here in my comments. So I have first that I'm soliciting user input. Second, I'm defining the Pig Latin function, and then I'll actually translate user input to Pig Latin. Right. And then I'll output the result afterwards. So first things first, soliciting user input should be relatively straightforward. Should be as simple as user, so I'm picking a kind of name for this, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, so it's something the user put in, it's user input, I guess, or it's the user's word. I'm going to go with user input. And that's going to be the result of calling the input function on the prompt, right? And the prompt that I'm going to use is provide a word for translation to Pig Latin. Oh gosh. Okay, so we're going to ask for a word to translate. We're going to store that into user input. That result there is going to be a string. So I know that since that result's going to be a string, if I needed to do something other than string stuff with it, I could typecast it. So I might do that typecasting right here. I'm not going to because this is a string and I want it to be a string. So now to define the Pig Latin function, I'm going to do define to Pig Latin. And then this thing's going to take an input string, right? And I can't put the word input in here. So I'm going to call this variable word. And that's going to be what gets passed to the Pig Latin function. So in my case, that's going to be the user's input. You do want to avoid this thing where you name the variable that's in the function the same thing as the variable outside the function. To that, maybe word of warning, if I name it user input, so which seems totally reasonable, right? I can do this. Now, what I've done here is I've created two different variables that both have the same name. This is a little bit like knowing identical twins, right? So this happened to be in Bozeman. For the longest time, I had these conversations at the climbing gym with this dude, Adam. And great guy, super nice, mid-40s climber, always really fucking confused. He was just always super confused. Like, he'd never know what we had been talking about. And then about a month after knowing Adam, I realized that there were two of them. There's Adam and Eric, who are identical adult twins who happen to live in the same town, which is super surprising for some reason, and confused the bejesus out of me. And that's exactly the risk you're running with this particular thing. So this user input on the outside is not going to know what happens to the user input on the inside. because they're different variables, right? They just exist in different places. Now, there are some tricks to get back and forth between the two, but in general, if you don't intend them to actually be the same variable, this is a bad idea. You'll have this confusion all the time where you run into Adam in the grocery store and he has no idea who the hell you are because it's actually Eric, right? So don't name them the same thing. It gets super confusing, but just pick a different name. So I'm going to call that thing word in there. And then in my definition, I need some conditional statement. And so the conditional statement is going to be if, and now I need to I'm just kind of noting, right? So I'm really trying to do this first if the word starts with a consonant, move it to the end and add a, right? So I'm just actually going to even steal that comment and put it down here so I know which thing I'm doing. Okay, so to this end, I kind of need a way to loop through this word, right? So really what I need is the first letter. So let me just try a thing, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of checking. So I think that I can use an index in a word. So let me just try this quick. I'm just going to, oops, I guess A is not a consonant. B is a consonant. So I think that if the first thing, right, the 0 element of the word is B, that this will do this kind of print diagnostic. Okay, so undefined name B. Oh, because B needs to be the letter B, right, not the variable B. Okay, and then I'm gonna just call the toPigLatin function on something, and that something's gonna need to start with B. So the first word I thought of that started with B is pet. Okay, so it's asking me for a word. That's good. It doesn't really matter what I put in here. And okay, so it starts with B, so let's try a word that starts with not B. Try that again. Random garbage. Okay, didn't execute. Cool. So this is now at least checking whether the first letter of the word, right, of this word is actually B. And if it is, then it's getting into this print line. Now, I'm going to need a list of consonants and vowels, so I'm going to pause this and put those in because it's going to be a pain in the ass. Okay, so I realized I was typing for more than like 2 seconds. I was trying to make this thing on line 14 here. So provide consonants and vowels lists. And I really was trying to make an honest list. So I was kind of typing this out, and that was a ton of characters. So I realized that I should be lazy and just look at, Google it. So I Googled, what did I actually Google? I Googled consonant list Python because that's what I wanted. I found a Stack Overflow, and in the answers here, this second answer, which is actually the better answer in here, upvote good answers, BT dubs, had just defined consonants as a string, which is a much better idea because it's still an iterable, but it doesn't take nearly as many characters to type out. So I am kiboshing this because that was dumb and putting this in, and I should, this was a good idea. I stole from link, boom, right? So I'm just noting where I stole an idea from so that, I can kind of give credit to people who deserve credit if I need to. So I have all my consonants, I have my vowels, and then I really want to say if word 0 is in consonants, print word started with a consonant. And then I'm just gonna go with elif. And this is really because I'm trying to think about debugging later, right? Because later there's going to be the possibility, right, that the user may have input something that doesn't make much sense, and I haven't really accounted for that yet. So I'm just going to kick an error if they input something that starts with a special character or whatever. So my else if statement is going to be else if the first letter is in vowels, right? Then we're going to print, oops, that's a Stack Overflow URL. Not what I thought I had on my clipboard. So otherwise, we're going to print out words started with a vowel. And we're going to try to Pig Latin cat and to Pig Latin, I need some other test case. Vowel word, oops, I guess. It's probably a little bit, yeah, that's special, but that's what came to mind for me. All right, so let's run this thing. So I still get to provide a word. Right now I'm not doing anything. And I want to do a little bit better with this, so I'm going to use a formatted string. And instead of just using the string word, I'm going to use the variable word in there. Right, remember that's this variable here, which only exists inside this function. So again, I'm running this, and I got cat started with a consonant. Oops, started with a vowel. Okay. So let's see. The vowel case should be really easy, right? Because if the word starts with a vowel, I'm supposed to add yay to the end. So I'm just going to take that comment and put that in here for my, if the word starts with a vowel, what am I doing? So I'm going to print out what it started with, right? So I still have that kind of diagnostic line that I'm printing out that it started with a vowel. And then otherwise what I want to do is I want to take word and add to it, right, this string yay. And then I'm just going to, let's see, should I return or use it here? I'm going to make this return. Let me not. I'm going to print out a formatted string that says in Pig Latin, that's word. And I need to escape that one single quote. Okay, so let's just check and see if this works. And I'm going to comment out the user input line because I'm tired of typing garbage in there. In Pig Latin, that's oops, yay. Okay, cool. So that's working. That's rad. So I'm not sure if this line is something that everyone's seen. That's how you add something to the end of a variable. So that's like saying word is word plus yay. So that's why I have the thing that was in the word variable, oops, plus yay, and then it's stored back into the word variable. All right, so that's how that one works. Now, if it started with a consonant, now this is going to get a little bit more hardcore. So I need word is going to equal word, and then it's going to be sliced from slot 1 to the end, right? So that's leaving off the 0 slot. Then I need to add the 0 slot, right? So that's taking the rest of the word and leaving it, and then moving that first letter to the end. And then we're also going to add this little string of AY. And let's see if this works. It is possible that I haven't remembered how slices work, and I may need to slice differently. cat started with a oh, because I didn't print it, right? So I'm just going to copy my print line from down here because that's printing out the variable word regardless. At K. Sick! Dude, it worked! Okay, so that's my Pig Latin translator, right? So that function now is defined and works on any word that I pass it. Now, the thing it doesn't do is this user input thing, right? So let me go back to using user input. Okay, so now in order to get the user input to work, I'm going to comment out my testing items. But I'm going to leave them in here because I think that might be useful for me later. Okay, and I'm going to indent them one just to make it obvious that those are, that'd cause an error later if I didn't, if I don't de-indent them, it would cause an error later, but I'm going to leave them there. Okay, so I need to translate the user inputs to Pig Latin. So right now the user's input is stored in the user input variable, and so I need to force that into the Pig Latin function. And it seems like you want to call this on word, right? Now, the variable word doesn't exist outside of the function. And so if I try to call this, I'm going to get an undefined variable error. Now, the variable that I want to do the Pig Latin function on is the user input variable, right? So when I run this, I'm going to get user input, I'm going to store that, and then I'm going to take that user input and then I'm going to feed it into the Pig Latin function. And there's a really common thing you want to do here, which is you want to print this. This really seems like a good idea. It is it's going to act a little strangely. So let me show you that because everybody wants to do this. So when I hit run, I'm going to get provide a word for translation into Pig Latin, and I realized that I didn't put a carriage return in my prompt, so I'm going to fix that. So now I have my carriage return, so I'm providing a word, and I'm going to provide I don't know, mincemeat. And it's going to print none. And that's real confusing. All right, so couple of things. This is a little bit perplexing. So the none, at least, is coming from the print line to Pig Latin, because to Pig Latin, as a function called on user input, returns none, right? There's no return. And so it kicks this none, which is getting printed out here. Okay, so I'm going to dump that and just confirm that that's what's going on there. And I get no output from the function itself, which seems totally bizarre. So I fed it a word, man. Mincemeat starts with a consonant. It is clear that it starts with a consonant, and yet this doesn't work. So what's the problem? Well, I have an if and an else if statement here, right? But I have no else statement, right? So this only does something in the case that the first letter is in the consonants or the first letter is in the vowels. Now, the thing is, I'm not really totally sure what's going on at it. Well, okay, I'm lying. I am totally sure what's going on, but I would like you to see what it's like to not be sure. It happens to everybody. Computer programming is like this all the time. You push execute or run or whatever, and wait, what? And the good news is that the computer's doing exactly what you told it to do. It's not doing anything else. Now, the problem is usually that what you told it to do and what you meant to tell it to do are different. And that's exactly what's happening here. So let me throw my else statement in here. So I'm just going to print out, well, that first letter isn't a consonant or a vowel. Okay, so let me run this again. Okay. Mincemeat. But mincemeat does start with a consonant, right? M. Right there. M. Right here. It totally starts with consonant. So what is the problem? Why do you not work? Does the computer hate me? Kinda. I stole a thing from the internet and I didn't really think very hard about it, right? I stole a list of consonants from the internet. Those consonants include an M. That is an M. But they're different M's because that one's capitalized and that one's not. And so I need to convert this to a lowercase before I check. So let me try that and try that here. And I'm going to provide my word again. Mincemeat starts with a consonant, and then it works. It does this weird thing with capitalization, which I'm not sure that I like. I'm going to leave that in there as a feature just so you can see what was happening, but I'm not sure that's a good idea. One thing just aesthetically, this thing where I've got word 0 dot lower a couple of different times that I'm using for something, having something as complex as getting the 0th letter out of the word and then converting it to lowercase and doing it twice is just begging for you to change one of them and not the other. So I'm gonna make a nice little function or a variable definition. I'm gonna say that first letter, right, is equal to word 0 dot lower. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it here and I'm going to put it there. And then this one I'm going to leave alone because that's doing the capitalization thing that I liked. If I didn't want it to capitalize, and since that's a thing I might decide to do later, I'm going to put a comment in reminding myself how to do that. So I'm going to say, if we should, or if discarding capitalization of the first letter is desired, do this instead. And then on the next line, I'm going to put what my change would be since I have it in my head. It would be to take this thing and replace word 0 with first letter, right? The variable that has that lowercase. Okay, so let me just go through and check for kind of commenting schemes. So let's see. So I have my stuff at the top, like my standard header. I have kind of what my goal was. I didn't really get to any of my reach goals on this because this video is already 25 minutes long. I'm soliciting user input. That's good. I'm providing consonant and vowel lists, which I might want to notice all lowercase, right? Because that caused me an issue. So I did learn something here. All right, and then I have consonants and vowels. And I have defined the Pig Latin function, which takes a string and outputs a Pig Latin translation. This actually prints a Pig Latin translation. If I wanted to return it instead, then I could use a return here. So this doesn't output, it prints. So I'm just going to note that to myself to change to output return instead of print. Actually, you know, I can write that line really easily. At the end here, I should be returning word. And I'm just going to comment that out. But that would do what I was saying about to change to output. To change to returning, really, I guess. Is this. Right, and then I have my, okay, to change to, and then again, say that's return. Actually, that comment is exactly the other one, so I'm just gonna delete it. I have define first letter as word 0.lower. If first letter is in consonants, that's all pretty self-explanatory, right? So that's really just me executing this line above it, so I don't feel like I need a ton of comments. If discarding capitalization, do this instead. Okay, so this thing does exactly what this comment said. Okay, so that prints out this. That line appears twice, see that? This line. I'm gonna slim my code down a little bit. I'm gonna take that out of both of these and just put it at the bottom. Oh, no, I'm not. The reason that I'm not is that in the case that it didn't start with a consonant or a vowel, I wouldn't want it to print, right? And so if I put that print out here, then it would print out in Pig Latin, right, even if it wasn't successful. So I do want to keep that in that if and else if. And then the else, that needs a little bit of fixing punctuation-wise, but otherwise it's fine. Let's see, I think I'm... this one, if I wanted to discard capitalization with this one, that would be a little bit harder. I'm going to leave that out because it is a little bit tougher. I'd want to maybe to lowercase the entire string or something before I returned it. That's a little bit more complicated. Then I have this. I'm not ever outputting the result, so I'm just going to delete that line. I have my two testing lines. I'm going to leave those in. I should, I suppose, put in the one I was also using, which was, in effect, mincemeat, right? So just the things that I tried in it, and that's so that if someone says that there's a problem, then I can at least just uncomment these and rock away with several examples. Okay, so I think that's a completed example here. This got a little bit more involved than I had thought it would, but it's kind of fun. If you wanted to make this all one thing, like get a word and convert it to Pig Latin, you might put the user input and the consonants and vowels declarations into the, oh, in fact, I should do that. These should not be global variables. So by global variables, I mean they're available to the entire program. It is unlikely that I'll need a consonants and a vowels list for the entire program. So I'm going to cut those and put them into the function. And on this line, I guess I should say, so the first letter is in the 0 slot and convert it to lowercase, right? I'm not sure that I like that phrasing. So the first letter, I guess I'm going to leave it. I'm not sure I'm happy with it, but you know. Okay, cool.